Greetings, YouTube and fellow traditionalist Catholics. This is Sergeant Becerra II, and welcome back to my channel. Now, for this video, I want to address something which I really am being serious about. I know this may sound crazy to some, even if you're Catholic, especially if you're Catholic, but I want to address something that is really serious, especially what's been going on all over the world, which no media outlet on TV won't even address, which has been however, by the way, been seen all over social media, which no one will ever talk about nor touch on any news network. And I will say this. I think it is time for us Catholics to call for a new crusade, a ninth crusade. Actually, at least a couple of crusades. Because we are living in dark times right now. And that is right now, we are seeing an increased number of migration, especially illegal migration. Sorry, I had to correct myself on that. All over Europe, especially in the United Kingdom, even in Canada and the United States. And it's not just Western civilization, it's all over the world. And that is, we are seeing a large number of migrants from the Middle East entering all over Europe by European governments. And these are radical Islamic jihadists who hate the West, but been allowed into European countries that these Islamists hate, but yet they want the culture which they came from be brought into another country so they can feel more comfortable, I would say, but then they want to shove it down the rest of the world's throats. Not just forcing Islam on Western civilization, but Sharia law on Europeans who don't want none of this. And it's not just Europe and the rest of Western civilization, but the whole world. We're seeing Islamists in Australia. We know it's happened in Japan. I don't know how much of a number of Islamists, of Middle Eastern Islamists, are in Japan, but it's I don't know how big exactly, but I know that the city of Osaka has been taken over, and now that you've got the first female prime minister, a conservative female prime minister, the first ever a woman in power to ever take the position of prime minister, because that's mainly been a man's position for a very long time in Japan's history, and has now taken the call to start deportations in Japan, to start getting these people out, even though the Japanese government has approved for thousands of visa workers to work in Japan, because Japan's population is starting to shrink and they need workers by flying people from India and other parts of the world. But Japan is fed up with these Middle Eastern people and they want them gone, which I have to stand by with. But we are having a problem with these Islamists, like, taking over countries in Europe, trying to shove their satanic religious ways down the rest of the world's throats. And it's not just trying to take over Europe. The whole goal of Islam is to take over the world, shove a religion down our throats, which none of us don't want to. Otherwise, we face death or anything that doesn't involve death. Who knows what kind of punishment they'll do to the world if we don't do what they demand, even if it means putting a gun to our heads. But we need to have a crusade. We need to liberate not just Western civilization, but the world from the satanic occult religion called Islam. Because Islam is a false religion. It is not, which we've already seen already from other videos, especially from Vatican Catholic, from Brother Peter Diamond, who has done a series that Christians and Muslims do not worship the same God, which the so-called uh, Catholic bloggers that agree with Vatican II believe that Christians and Muslims worship the same God. No, we don't. Muslims worship a false God, and their prophet Muhammad is not, I would say, not a real prophet at all. Who, according to Muslim history, was approached by Saint Gabriel the Archangel that told who told him to that a new religion would rise, and that he'd be the one to write the Quran, which I don't think is a holy book. Nothing more. It is nothing more but a satanic pagan book. Nothing. It is nothing more filled with hate and evil, and people that don't agree with it, like Jews and Christians, were put to death. And all we've seen is the one thing I can say of what we've seen from these people that practice this religion show nothing but hate. And all they care about, nothing else is but their false religion. That is it. And we have had people in the past, um, from saints that are theologians, especially from one pope in particular, that have crushed the argument that Muslims and Christians do not worship the same God, and proven that Islam is fake. And Islam has been a threat since the mid 7th century. And now is the time to call for a crusade. And I will say this, anti-Pope Leo XIV will never consider such a thing ever. Leo XIV is weak. He wastes more time on non-existent things like climate change, which I don't believe exists, and the environment. Well, I've when it comes to the environment, I've got nothing against about keeping anything clean, but climate change is not something the church needs to focus on. But we need to address. But what the church needs to focus on is the gospels and spreading the word of God around. But but to call for a holy war, Leo XIV won't. And one thing we can prove to you in the past, that under anti-Pope John Paul II, we know there's photos of him kissing a copy of the Quran, kissing that pagan book, but yet in the past he has rejected the Crusades, which has been approved by many popes throughout the course of history, going all the way back with Urban II. But this isn't the first time that John Paul II has rejected the Crusades. He even apologized for the church's role for the Inquisition, which is even I find to be ridiculous, because historians have said that the apology for the Inquisition was not necessary because the church was not responsible, because we were seeing a lot of heresy being seeing a lot of heresy rise, especially with Protestantism. But we do need to call for a crusade, because I have a feeling within the next 10 to 30 years, our way of life, especially the world, is going to fall to Islam if we don't really do something about it. Because if I were Pope, I would have called for a crusade. I would have called for a crusade to liberate not just the West, but the entire world from Islam. And we need to put an end to it now. And all we've seen are nothing. And one thing we've seen lately is that a lot of European governments are just allowing these people to just go into their countries, not vetted, not checked, nothing. for any possibility they could be a threat, and yet just let them in. The UK is one big example because Islam in the UK is basically taken over just about all of England, and it's becoming a problem, especially under the current Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who has been siding with these people instead of his own countrymen. Instead, he's locking them up over anti-immigration posts on social media, showing once and for all that Keir Starmer is a communist and that he's willing to protect people who had no business being in England in the first place, and yet he's locking people up over anti-immigration posts. He's like taking freedom away from the native British people, which I feel sorry for. And nothing's being done about it, and people have had it with Starmer and the current Liberal Labour Party in England. But you have some countries that are like, you have some countries in Europe that are like pushing back. I think Spain and Portugal are starting to push back. I think, but you look at other countries like France, their country is just a mess. The streets of Paris are a mess. Nothing littered but garbage and other filth. And you have immigrants not just from Middle Eastern countries, but also from Africa, and that are not just Islamists, but a lot of people are just mentally ill, and nothing has been done about it. People that should have been rejected entering Europe in the first place. And it's not just England, France, um, in Germany, which also has a migration problem, but Italy too. I mean, they're just let. You have a lot of people from North Africa who have taken boats crossing the Mediterranean, not just into Italy but in Greece, just using up all resources that a lot of Europeans like really need, like healthcare, and yet a lot of people are getting screwed over. And right now, it is becoming a problem, not just in Western civilization, but the rest of the world. Islam has to be destroyed. We got to liberate not just the Western civilization, but the world from Islam. Now, throughout the course of history, there have been a total of 8 holy crusades that 8 holy crusades that have conquered the Holy Land, especially Jerusalem. But there have been times that the Crusades have failed to retake it, especially after what happened in the late 12th century when the Crusaders lost Jerusalem to the Islamic leader Saladin, which later led to Richard the First of England to carry out the Third Crusade by Pope Gregory the Eighth to retake Jerusalem, which never ever happened in the end. There have already been a total of 8 crusades to try to get back the Holy Land. The last one was in 1270 under King Louis the Ninth of France, who was later canonized as Saint Louis the Ninth of France. But we have seen, but one thing I did research on, there have been like many crusades over the centuries over different things that had nothing to do with the Holy Land. One in particular, however, would be the crusade to retake Constantinople after the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople, which is the capital of the Byzantine Empire, which is actually the Eastern Roman Empire, in 1453. Which that crusade was later launched under Pope Nicholas V, but after his death, it was later carried on by Pope Calixtus III, in which a certain town was later taken back, but didn't get back uh, Constantinople. A different town, I can't recall, that had been under Ottoman control. But I think there was like another crusade, if I can recall, that occurred under Pope Pius II, which I can't recall either. But I know there was like another crusade after that one. But Constantinople was never conquered, ended up becoming the capital of the Ottoman Empire, which later became the country known as Turkey and had its capital name from Constantinople to Istanbul, which I believe is still Constantinople to this day. And right now, we are in desperate need to get at least a couple of crusades right now to liberate the world from Islam, and then finally, I would say a ninth crusade, crusade number 9, to retake Jerusalem and the rest of the Holy Land back, all in the name of God. But if I were Pope, I would focus on liberating the world from Islam, from West and the rest of the world, and then finally focus on getting Jerusalem back at the very end. That would be my plan if I were Pope. Is all I'm saying. But Leo the 14th won't do it. We are in desperate need to rid the world from this satanic occult like religion, which is, by the way, not a real religion. It is nothing more than a satanic cult. It is a problem for the world. And yet a lot of people think it's a religion of peace, which is not, by the way, because what we've seen lately just seeing nothing but evil acts of hatred, not just towards Christians, but the West, which they are trying to conquer. I mean, think about it. Throughout the course of history, especially through European Christendom, we have seen popes, we have seen monarchs try to defend Christendom from the forces of the Ottoman Empire. And I guess we've got to a point where we have ignored the past, what history has taught us, and just allowed these things to happen. But we need to push back because the only European ruler that I can think of that has prevented the Ottoman Empire from ever conquering the capitals of Europe was none other than Vlad the Impaler, the real life Dracula, who took on the Ottoman Empire, impaling thousands of Ottoman soldiers. And then in the end, Vlad loses his life, no doubt, by assassination, even though some have said either by assassination or in battle, which I think it might have been through assassination because Vlad, while lying in state after he died, his head was amputated and taken to the Sultan, proving that he was dead, and had it on a spike, declaring the impaler is now the one impaled. But as the rest of Vlad's remains, they were never found. We have had other battles between Western Christendom and the Ottoman Empire, in which we have pushed back really hard, but it's gotten to the point we're seeing European governments just flood nation after nation throughout Europe, allowing these people in. And which some people are saying this has now become a trying to find the word for it. People replacement. Replacing Europeans with these people. A replacement theory, which has now become a reality, now a replacement policy by European governments, not just Europe, but in the United States as well. And we're seeing it, and it's becoming a problem. We even have jihadists in some states in the United States that don't know the country's history. They don't know our country's constitution. All they think about is their ridiculous religion and the Quran, nothing else. And yet we've got people admitting they'd rather replace our country's constitution with Sharia law, which the Constitution already forbids already, because there's a part in the Constitution you cannot replace the current form of government, which is the constitutional republic, with a different form of government or any kind of political policies. And Sharia law is one of them, especially when we fought against the monarchy That would be England. Yeah, so our constitution already forbids it, but we are trying. For what I'm hearing right now, there are already now measures to ban Sharia law throughout the entire United States because I'm already hearing now that Texas has already done it. They have banned Sharia law because there have already been reports of like a little Muslim city growing inside of Texas, like a large Muslim community type city that was planned to be built. I'm trying to put it in words, but apparently there have been like violations like zoning and uh, other laws involving construction. And we're at a point right now, the whole world, especially Western civilization, could fall in a number of years if we do not address it. Leo the 14th will not. Because like we saw with John Paul II, especially no doubt Benedict the 16th probably sided with Islamists, but Francis and Leo the 14th, no doubt, have been like, I guess you can say, friends or agree with like with Muslims that we can coexist and live together side by side. No, we cannot. No, because it kind of goes against what the Bible says: "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," and that there is only one God. Therefore, only one God, one true faith. That's it. Christianity, mainly Catholicism, is the one and only true religion. So we need a crusade now, two at least. Liberate Western civilization and the rest of the world from Islam, then get back the Holy Land, which will be declared as the Ninth Crusade, the Ninth Holy Crusade to get back the Holy Land, especially Jerusalem. But um, I, I don't remember if I just said this a moment ago or some time ago, that we've had at least a number of crusades try to get back the Holy Land, but there have been like other crusades started by popes and monarchs over other things that had nothing to do with the Holy Land. We know that Pope Innocent III had called for an Albigensian crusade to wipe out the Cathars in France. However, one thing I did do some research on before the actual crusade of 1095 under Blessed Pope Urban II. I'm looking it up right now. Okay, so in 1065, Pope Alexander II called for a crusade in Spain because it had been under the control of the Muslim Moors in trying to uh, take back the city. I'm trying to look for it. Barbastro, which is a Spanish town in northeastern Spain that had been under the control of Muslim Moors. Now, under Alexander II, he told these forces, especially if monarchs and other nobles throughout parts of Europe, such as Spain and France, were going to get involved, not only do you need to protect Christians and free them, but you need to protect Jews as well. They need to be protected because the Moors are just trying to exterminate them. I it's kind of when I looked this up, it was kind of complicated to understand it. I understand they got back. I'm trying to remember the name of the city again. I'm sorry, I have to look this up on my phone. Bastro. I mean, they did get back the town, but within 10 months, they ended up losing it again. Uh, I guess all I can say there were consequences for the way how they just um, not only conquered the town but just ravaged it. Just just taking away not only treasures from the Moors but other purging slings of Muslim men, women, and children. But they end up, I mean, they get back the town, but they end up losing it again to the Moors. So again, this happened in 1065 under Pope Alexander II, just to get that town back, but then later lose it. Then decades later, we see the actual crusade by Pope Urban II in 1095 to get back Jerusalem. And the last crusade to reclaim the Holy Land was in 1270 under King Louis IX of France, who would later be known as Saint Louis IX. But we are in need of a new crusade, and we need it now. As I've said, we need 2 more crusades. Liberate the world, especially the West, from Islam. And then finally call the 9th Holy Crusade to get back the Holy Land and Jerusalem. We need to get all that back. We need to take back our nations and rid the world from Islam. Actually, Islam needs to be destroyed completely. We cannot let this religion take over the world and then have our lives be controlled by these radicals. Because ever since 9/11 happened in the United States in 2001, I mean, America has been at war for more than 20 years fighting radical Islamic terrorism, radical Islamic jihadists. They're just trying to destroy the United States by all costs. And you've got countries like Iran that is a state sponsor of terror, sponsoring these terror groups that have been trying to purge Israel and the West, especially the United States. That's become a problem. And here we are, 24 years later. And right now, it's like, what has happened now? Like, we went through hell after 9/11, going into war, fighting off these kind of people, and now we're just seeing an Islamic takeover of the West. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, have we just like forgotten what happened to us? Just like given up? I don't know. It's a problem that needs to be addressed. But one thing that I have seen, which is disturbing, especially in the UK, mainly in the UK, that a lot of British people have converted to Islam. And especially how people are just being locked up over anti-immigration posts. You have people within the British police force have admitted they have converted to Islam. And I find that to be scary. It's just like, how does this happen? To go from a Christian nation, which was once Catholic, then become a Protestant, just fall to Islam. And some are saying that England could become the first Islamic state, the first Muslim state ever within the next 10 to 20 years. Who knows? And King Charles III hasn't done a thing about it to like prevent something like this from ever happening. I mean, Charles has actually been siding with Islamists than his own people, than he is to be known as the defender of the faith, defender of the Protestant faith, the Anglican faith, because he's been putting Islam before his own religion than he's supposed to defend, and his people, which, by the way, would forfeit his crown. But we need at least 2 more crusades to liberate and destroy Islam completely and get back Jerusalem. This has to stop now. And I am definitely calling for a crusade. We don't need Leo XIV's permission or the church's permission to call for a crusade. We can do this ourselves because Leo is weak. And we need to take matters into our own hands. And we need to do it now. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you think it's time to call for a crusade? You tell me. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell beside it, and you guys tell me what you think. We need 2 more crusades, at least, to like save this planet and get back the Holy Land. This wraps it up. God bless you all in the name of Christ. Take care now. Bye.